everyone, but
It is
we did better to
1:30.
down here.
So I told us I want some ice cream.
It is 1:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the afternoon session of our BOCC June 23rd, 2026 meeting. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We are going to, I'll look for proof of publication.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Anybody have any ex parte communication to share with the
Yes,
clerk?
I do.
None.
So Commissioner Constantine has already done it electronically.
Yes.
Commissioner Delary is doing it on
here.
paper.
I received a phone call from a couple of citizens on the Rosenwald project. Those were, I believe, submitted electronically.
And I have none to submit. The first item on our agenda is the Rosenwald Community Center rezone. This will be presented by Annie Silloway, our principal planner. And we appreciate you being here. This is our second public hearing.
Excuse me, Chairman, would you like me to read the rules for quasi-judicial hearings?
I certainly would not like to read the rules. I don't even know that I want to follow the rules, but if you read them, we will all follow them. How about that?
I will read them.
We cannot keep her together.
We do have one quasi-judicial hearing, so I will, and it is this one, so I will read it.
Awesome. You'd read them now. Thank you.
While the board welcomes comments from all persons with an interest in these proceedings, Florida law requires that the board's decision in quasi-judicial actions be supported by competent, substantial evidence presented to the board during the hearings on the applications. Competent, substantial evidence is such evidence as a reasonable mind would accept as adequate to support a conclusion. There must be a factual basis in the record to support opinion testimony from both expert and non-expert witnesses. Persons presenting testimony may rely on factual information that they present, on information presented by county staff, information the applicant presented, or on factual information included in the county staff report to support their testimony. All persons who present written materials to the board for consideration must ensure that a copy of such materials is provided to the clerk for inclusion in the board's record of the proceedings and the official minutes. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I was kidding in the for the record category. Ms. Silloway, please proceed.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Annie Silloway with Development Services. This request that is being presented today is for a rezone from R1 single-family dwelling and R2 1 and 2 family dwelling to PLI public lands and institutions. The rezone is to allow for the development of a public park and community center. The subject property has a public, quasi-public future land use designation which permits a maximum floor area ratio of 0.65. This designation is intended to identify locations suitable for a range of public and quasi-public uses, including but not limited to public and private recreation facilities, educational institutions, and libraries. And since this is a second reading, I'm just going to go ahead with the request. The Board of County Commissioners met on May 12th, 2026, and voted unanimously to adopt the ordinance rezoning a property from R1 single-family dwelling and R2 1 and 2 family dwelling to PLI public lands and institutions on approximately 12.96 acres located on the north side of Merritt Street and approximately 0.25 miles east of Ronald Reagan Boulevard upon the first reading. Staff requests the Board of County Commissioners adopt upon the second reading of an ordinance rezoning a property from R1 and R2 to PLI on approximately 12.96 acres located on the north side of Merritt Street and approximately 0.25 miles east of Ronald Reagan Boulevard. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Is there any public comment on this, Ms. Drager?
No, ma'am.
There is not. With that, I will go to the District Commissioner.
Well, I want to thank you all on behalf of the community for all the support in this project and continuing to see it come to fruition. And so with that, I would like to make a motion to approve the rezone as presented.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is the public hearing, legislative, the Land Development Code Amendment. This will be Maya Athanas, Principal Planner. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. For the record, Maya Athanas, Principal Planner, Planning and Development Division. and I am here today to present the Land Development Code Amendment. This is an ordinance, and I'm sorry, this is the first reading of 2 readings for this item. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Chapter 5, Chapter 20, Chapter 30, Chapter 35, Chapter 70, and Chapter 90 of the Seminole County Land Development Code. So just some quick background on this. The last major update that we did to the Land Development Code was in January of 2024. That was a significant reorganization of the zoning chapter. So since then, we have identified some other things that we need to clean up. Most of those are outlined on the last 4 slides of this presentation and are fairly minor. But in addition, we're also proposing some updates related to compliance with state regulations, application and variance trends, streamlining of processes, housing needs, and updates required by the comprehensive plan. And just a quick note, a majority of these topics have been discussed at previous work sessions, so this presentation is going to highlight the major updates. So first up, we took a look at updates for compliance with state regulations. We are proposing to update the separation requirements for alcoholic beverage establishments. This is not required for us to do by the state, so we're doing it voluntarily because we think that it makes sense for the infill projects that we've been seeing as of recent. So we're proposing to remove the separation altogether from churches, residential, and like establishments, and decrease the separation to schools by 500 feet, down to 500 feet. Additionally, we are recommending to remove the requirement for Seminole County to track the communication tower master plans. It's not something that we do now, and we're not required to do it. The next category is application and variance trends. We did take a look at our accessory dwelling unit regulations. As of right now, all residential properties can do, they can have a accessory dwelling unit up to 35% of the gross floor area of the main home, or up to 45% through an administrative adjustment. We do see a good number of those administrative adjustments come through, and they do usually get approved. So what we're recommending is just to go to 50%, because we also allow up to 50% for accessory structures. So instead of 35% or 45% or 50%, we're suggesting to make it 50% across the board. And keeping it at that 1,100 square feet. I apologize. We're also recommending up to 1,600 square feet for accessory dwelling units in our agricultural zoning districts when they are greater than 3 acres. All right, the next topic is streamlining processes. A number of these updates are again shown in the last few slides for general and additional updates. The major one here is updates to our plan development regulations. We are recommending that we clarify the permitted uses for plan developments in the higher intensity airport future land use designation. So we did take a look at what is allowed in that future land use designation, as well as the joint planning agreement with the city of Sanford and the Sanford Airport. We took their recommendations into account and compiled the list that's in the ordinance. One note I would like to make is that we are also going to add mixed-use projects to that list of permitted uses. That is not in the ordinance that's before you today. Unfortunately, it just for some reason wasn't in there, so we are going to need to add that before the final version that you'll see in July at the adoption hearing for the second reading. We're also recommending a general reorganization of this section and to add the following greater benefits for PDs as an option: undergrounding of utilities, water star practices, dark sky lighting, and substantial native plantings. The next few slides that we'll go over are related to housing needs. So this slide is about the density bonus for affordable housing. In our comprehensive plan, all of our residential land use designations allow a density bonus for affordable housing. So we are not recommending to change that. So we are not recommending any changes to the allowable density. What we're looking at here is establishing the ratio for how many affordable units need to be provided to get that bonus. So I have two examples on the slide here, but there are other options for it depending on if the project is doing very low income or low income units, or if they're doing rental or ownership units. So for example, if there's a project with the low density residential future land use designation, and they are providing one affordable unit, they would get 2 additional market rate units. And that would, be the ratio for the density. I will say that the recommendations for this program are based on a market study that we conducted with Kimley Horn last year, which took into account housing quantity and the overall needs for housing in the county. And we did work with community development to determine the process and how we're going to implement this when and if this gets approved, so that if we do have any projects that would like to use this program, we have a straightforward and an easy path for them to follow. These projects would be required to do an affordability agreement with the county, which would be approved at a public hearing, and that would outline how long those units need to be affordable for and how those would be tracked. Another update that we are recommending to in the housing needs category is the alternative design standards option. So what you see on the screen on the left is what you would expect today with a standard subdivision using the standard size lot widths and lot sizes with no open space requirement. What you see on the right is what we would be proposing through this alternative design standards. This would be optional and voluntary for projects to do. They would be able to have slightly smaller lots in exchange for for an open space requirement. The important thing to note here is we're not proposing change in density again, so they would still be limited to whatever the density is that they are entitled to through their future land use designation. We are not really recommending significant changes here. So for example, in the R1AA zoning district, the standard size lot width is 90 feet. We would allow them to go down to 70 feet in exchange for that 20% open space, so on and so forth. This would only apply to the R1, R1B, R1A, and R1AA zoning districts. We selected those because those are the zoning districts that have the most land left available for future development. One last thing to note on this is that because of the reduced lot sizes and lot widths, we do recommend decreasing the setbacks for some of these zoning districts so that we're not seeing a huge influx of variances. We do see a good number of variances now for setbacks, so we feel like this would also decrease some of the staff time that goes into reviewing those. But we, again, wouldn't be talking significant changes. It would maybe be from 10 feet on the side down to 7.5 feet, something along those lines. The last topic for the housing needs category is missing middle. I do want to preface this that we have been anticipating these changes that you see on the screen here pretty much since right after we adopted missing middle about 2 years ago. So these are not significant changes and don't take into account any changes that may be discussed right now. So what we're proposing is to change the terminology from a final development plan to a conceptual plan at time of rezone. We think that's a more appropriate type of plan for them to present at that stage in the process. And then we would also like to add an option for the Development Services Director to waive some of the connectivity requirements when feasibility for that connectivity is super limited based on wetlands, water bodies, or other types of barriers. And then, like I said, the last few slides are the additional updates that have been discussed at previous work sessions, as well as the updates to the definitions. I would like to mention that top one that's highlighted because it is not in the version of the ordinance you have before you, but we do anticipate it to be in the final version at the adoption hearing on July 14th, which is to add vocational schools as a permitted use in the C3 zoning district. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Staff requests the board approve the first reading of the proposed ordinance to amend the Seminole County Land Development Code as per the following motion. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for staff at this point?
I'd like to hear from the public first.
Chairman, can I just make a couple notations?
Absolutely.
So there's a couple additional amendments that staff is asking for. I don't know that you caught both of them because they were in the presentation, so I just want to make sure we have those placed on the record and and everybody knows what we're doing. The first one is a revision to add language to 3852B, and that is in the HIP AP. We took the uses, as you know, there was a list of uses which is allowed in this zoning category in the comp plan, which is strange to have a list of uses in the comp plan. So they're being moved over to the land development code, so it's easier access for people to just see them all there. It also allows for mixed use in this category, so we just added in, we want to add in a provision that allows for multifamily units, such as condominiums, apartments, townhomes, and above-store flat housing units, that they're permitted in mixed-use development only, and that if you're going to engage in these multifamily uses, it's limited to 20% of the total net buildable area of any development and 49% of the maximum total floor area for the development. So that just ensures that it's not only multifamily residential, that it has to be mixed use, and putting the threshold in there, which is mixed use is already permitted in this, under the comp plan in this portion of the code. And then the change to the use table 5.2 to allow for vocational schools within the C3 zoning category.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Lockhart.
And was that only for HIP Airport, or was that for HIP TI and other HIPs as well?
It was just for HIP Airport.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't consider that in the other HIPs?
So HIP TI does already allow the same thing for the mixed-use residential, and in HIP TI, it would be limited to 49% of the floor area for the project, which is what we would be proposing for this as well.
I
So
think the
what I'm-
question was about the vocational schools. No?
It was about the HIP.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
What I'm looking for is consistency. So are now all of our HIP zonings consistent with one another, or is there something where there is a one-off where someone thinks that because it's in HIP TI, it also is HIP Airport, and, or are there still caveats in one of them that is not in another?
Well, they do have different lists of uses based on the designation. The target industry uses are different from the airport supportive uses. There are some overlaps, but they would both allow the residential mixed-use component.
With the same percentages?
Yes, the difference would be in HIP Airport, it would be limited to 20% of the net buildable area. That is not in the HIP TI.
So they're not the same?
They're not exactly the same, no.
Okay.
And we should note, too, for the record, that you could only have these multifamily uses that are in HIP AP, but outside of the airport noise zones. So there's not many properties that this is going to apply to. It's very, very limited.
Yeah, they do have different intents. So the target industry, we would be more encouraging of some residential components because of the target industry employment generating uses, whereas with the airport, we're really looking for those airport supportive uses and
Which are
residential.
people?
Yes. Yes, but not
We need
all.
employees at the airport. I don't know.
I mean, if you would like to give direction as far as
I would like to better
keeping them
understand why we
consistent.
picked the numbers we picked. Why is it that we think that that's the magic number for that particular zoning, and yet we didn't pick a different number? I just want to understand the methodology behind it before I say, yeah, that's great, I think that makes sense. When at some point in time, a developer will come, as we may have later on today, and say, why is this allowable here and not here? And I need to know why. I need to understand why we made the decision that we made, and if there's a good, solid reason for it, I can support it, but I think I'm leaning more toward consistency unless there is a really drastic reason for it to be different. That being said, I may be only one of 4 people who feels that way, and it is completely a moot point. So.
Do you want to attempt to explain that? Now, I see a conversation going on back there that may or may not pertain to this.
I will give a little bit more context for the HIP Airport. As you know, the comprehensive plan was also updated in 2024. The old comp plan only allowed up to 10% of the entire future land use for HIP Airport to be residential uses. So we actually would be increasing that allowance up to the 20% for each site. So it is a little bit more lenient than it was in the past. So that's, that was the compromise we were trying to make with it, but we can always discuss it more if we feel like, we have some other ideas for it.
Dagmary? Thank you.
Dagmary Segar, Deputy Director for Development Services. The other consideration, that's one of the ones that I was going to mention, but the other consideration is the fact of the actual uses in the HIP TI and the AP. The TI allows uses more of offices and technology, which you have a greater dense population in regards to employment. The airport uses are more into industrial and manufacturing of uses, which typically are uses that will require a certain amount of employees, but not as greater as the office and technological uses. That's why the percentages are slightly different. But if the direction of the board is to have it the same because of consistency, we can definitely do that. We just didn't want to take too much of the space that it is designated for the airport uses, as we don't have a lot of land in that area for these type of uses to be dedicated for residential.
Commissioner Constantine?
Just a question. Didn't we want to avoid residential around the airport? So what's the logic in increasing it?
My recollection is some people wanted to reduce it and some people thought it would be good to increase it. Maybe there was a difference of opinion at the time.
Which is exactly what has been done, is the staff, as always, is threading the needle. The teeny little hole that we create up here.
We've discussed density in various places. I don't recall us, and maybe we did, but I don't recall us disagreeing on residential at the airport. We understood that there was a necessity, but we also knew, we're going to be causing a problem by having more residential around the airport. We're inviting people to move there, and then they'll call up and complain about the noise of the airport. I mean, it doesn't. I don't know. It does. To me, I would want to avoid that problem.
I would tell you that from my perspective, I think we have fewer and fewer opportunities every year to create economic development in this county, and the airport is our largest one, and I would like to see housing elsewhere. So putting some housing out there to accommodate the workforce out there, but increasing it beyond what has been recommended by the staff is, I don't have an interest in it.
And Madam Chair, if I could add one thing. We did the same thing with the HIP TI over at International, and what has been the ongoing battle is that more people want residential, and we are losing more opportunity. Now, we understand, conditions of the market and everything, but again, I would suggest we, like you said, we limit the amount of residential at the airport.
Commissioner Galari?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree that with the limited space that we have around the airport, it should be more industrial and commercial and not residential. So whatever we can do to promote that, I think would be advantageous, especially With what we're doing there with the indoor sports complex and potentially other venues in that area, I think it more leads itself to commercial industrial and not residential, as I think some of the comments we had here. But I'd also like to ask the question about density bonuses, and we've had some issues with in the past about how it affects existing housing elements from the cost perspective and about the neighborhoods, and I don't see anything yet how it addresses that. And because what we're doing is one size fits all about density bonuses, and it should be in key areas and not just blanket across the entire county. Because unless there is another way to look at it, that there's been some neighborhoods where people have looked at it, and now we have a room full of people, and we look at it and like, okay, it is affecting the neighborhood. There is not enough road capacity. There is less infrastructure, and yet by doing it, we're given the right to do that.
I think that's a really good question.
So I'd like to have staff address it.
Okay, absolutely. If I understand the question correctly, when a project comes in for any kind of development, as you know, we do verify that they have the ability for retention and access, and if they cannot meet those standards with the density bonus, they would not be able to do the density bonus.
Well, yeah, we've seen a project one or two that actually people that made it to here, or P and Z, and it was density bonuses. They were looking for X amount, and all of a sudden, we voted it down. It shouldn't have been there because no one talked about how much the rate was going to be and the fair market value and how it was going to depreciate the neighborhood. I'd like to have information on that.
Okay.
I have one more question, and then we'll go to public comment, and I think it's on page 1398, which is titled Housing Needs, Alternative Design Standards. And I think in the presentation, I heard you say that we were not increasing the density, but if you look at one of those pictures compared to the other, there is an increase in density, at least by my read.
Okay, yes, I do understand that. So let me clarify. We would not be increasing the maximum allowable density, so it would still be limited to whatever the future land use designation is. The difference between the densities here is, I mean, what they were able to fit on the site. But in this example, they both would have been allowed to do up to 4 units an acre. So, I mean, as you can see, even with the alternative design standards, this hypothetical project still didn't get close to the 4 units an acre.
Thank you for the clarification. I just really wanted it clarified. Commissioners, go ahead.
I have
Commissioner
a few
Constantine.
questions. Thank you. The changes on, it's on page 4 for my turn. When I was having the staff discussions earlier, this was not something that we discussed, and it was concerned, looking at it. I understand that it cannot be, when we're talking about accessory dwellings. In one case, we're changing it from 35% or 1,000 square feet, and we're going to 50% or 1,100 square feet, whatever is less. It just seems like 50% is, you know, it seems like arbitrary based upon, you wanted to make everything 50%, that was the way you said it. But this was accessory dwelling units, not potential primary dwelling units. The concern I have, and question, it can be up to 1,000 or 1,100, but it can't be more than one. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we're not going to have 2 or 3 small houses on there?
It would still only be one.
Only one. The second question is, and what I'm concerned about mostly is, we still haven't figured out the question of, of ownership, ongoing ownership. We had a lot of discussion about that in the past, where who buys it, who puts it in. We were talking about primary owner, and we were talking about, like the mother-in-law, if you will.
Residency,
Yeah,
meaning.
the residency.
Meaning that the owner resides in the main dwelling or the lower dwelling.
Correct, and we still haven't decided that, and it is not in here. And I don't know if it's judicious to go ahead and start changing this without coming up with that answer first. because that was the main question that all of us had concern about. It's not a big change, saying that it's 50% or 1,100, but it still sounds like a larger than just an accessory dwelling when you put it at 50%. So I have concerns about that.
Well, I believe it's up to, it's the lesser
It is.
of.
Yes, that's correct.
And so the clarification is a clarification by today's standards, but we still have the open issue of residency of
Residency.
the owner.
Well, I can clarify that today, as of today, in the code now, we do require that the owner live on the site in one of the 2 units.
Yes, and this was discussed at a previous meeting when we talked about accessory uses, and the direction from the board was to maintain it at the status quo, so the staff did not touch that provision in the code.
And that's great. I think what we were concerned about and what we hadn't had an answer for is what happens when they leave.
When who leaves?
When the
When they sell the
primary resident sells the house and ongoing ownership of that property and how it's used.
When the
That-
primary owner sells it to a REIT or
Yes.
to a landlord that
and all
intends
of a
to
sudden
rent
you have
out
a vac-
both.
And you have a vacation home there instead of. And this was, we had some debates about that. And I just wanted to throw that out again, because we still have to resolve that. I have another question.
So before we move on
Okay,
to that,
I'm sorry.
can you answer that?
Sure. So, we cannot prohibit vacation homes. That's been preempted by the state. The requirement for the ownership to be, the use of the accessory structure, to have an owner on the property and not be rented out, that is an existing requirement in the code, as you know, but as we've talked about before, it's very difficult from an enforcement standpoint to make sure that that continues to occur. We talked about, we can try to have code enforcement, look at it, check rental sites, things like that, but without, looking at the deed and IDing the people that live there, that is going to be a challenge from an enforcement standpoint.
Commissioner Lockhart?
I have that exact scenario in my district, and it is very difficult, and it is very, very difficult to follow, and I feel bad for staff that has been tasked with trying to keep up with that. Tenants, there's a lot of transiency. It is not an easy thing. So, and it really, I think, only becomes a problem when someone behaves badly, right? If everybody is behaving and they're good neighbors, then really no one cares if the owners are on site or if it's a relative of an owner or what have you. I do think we need to be very careful that we are not overstepping our bounds as local government and the rights of private property owners to use their properties as they see fit. If I have my mother living in an accessory dwelling unit and I have to move out of town for some reason for a period of time, does that put me out of compliance? I think that the owner occupying one of those structures is very hard to keep track of. Do you do it by voter registration? Do you do it by where your mail is being delivered? I mean, maybe I still have my mail delivered to my main house and I'm, I took a job out of state for a while. I just think we need to be very careful, although it's good intention, that we're not micromanaging people's lives and doing something unintentionally prohibitive for families.
Commissioner, I agree, okay? I do not want to micromanage, but we are giving an additional, to private property rights, an additional opportunity that they did not have before when we add the auxiliary dwelling unit. The concern, in your scenario you just had, I don't have any problem with it. Okay, what I have a problem with is when that person who has built that, mother-in-law lived there, father-in-law lived there, whoever lived there, and then they sell the whole property. Somebody comes in, and then it becomes 2 separate rental units in a neighborhood, and I understand that that is a problem, a problem in enforcement, but it also is a problem for the citizens that already are living there. And that was we did have a good debate about it, a discussion. We were all concerned about it. And one of the tasks that we made is how do we do a better job in controlling that? And all I was saying is I still haven't heard a way to control that, or at least minimize the concern that would be having. And I do see this as an opportunity that in the real estate market, great idea, buy a house, now you got 2 rental units. Buy a piece of property, you got 2 rental units. And if I'm their neighbor, I'm going to have a problem with that. And so that person's private property rights are now being, violated, if you will. So that was the concern I had on that one. And I was trying to point out that that is still an ongoing concern that I have. And I would love to see if any innovative ideas, creative ideas that we could do to minimize that ongoing problem. Because once we do, we have done it, but as we go along, this is going to become, as the chairman said, some RIT is going to become very smart and start doing and buying them up. In fact, they're doing it now, just not here so much. The only other thing that I had is when we discussed the compliance with state regulations on page 3, we talked about minimizing it to 500 feet. Not to say that I'm against it, but we never really discussed removing it from churches. And I just wanted to bring that out. We said 500 feet instead of 1,000 feet. But in this one, it's removing any distance from a church.
But I disagree with you.
To make it
Mayor.
consistent with statute.
Well, we talked about it because we have instances where in strip malls, there are churches moving into large spaces, and then we have existing restaurants, and so the setback doesn't exist. And we've seen that occur numerous times. So state statute doesn't require any setback. We're trying to navigate these kind of new situations where our open land is becoming less and less available, and this was one of the ways staff was trying to do that.
Nasa, you answered the question for me. I was just concerned that we were causing, now all of a sudden somebody's going to be coming in here and complaining that we're doing it, because I do remember, the 1,000 feet, we all agreed that was too much. But I don't ever remember saying removing it completely. If we did, fine, and your example makes all the sense in the world.
So the problem still exists, that if you have a freestanding church that's not in a shopping center, you will have somebody coming in
Yes,
with a problem.
you will.
So that, maybe that's a takeaway for future language, but I want to...
Considering the 2 opposite changes, yes.
Yes. I do want to go back to the accessory dwelling discussion and say that somewhere between those 2 discussions is where I lie. I do think that the neighbor's property rights are, and I know you think the same thing, are equal to the property owner's property rights.
Within reason.
I think there is value to us having regulation that says that there should be an owner-occupied operation when you're renting out the accessory unit. If for no other reason is to prevent a national firm that is looking for these opportunities, that doesn't want to violate a local ordinance, they will go somewhere else. And I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And where we see these problems crop up primarily is in any town that's got water. So if you go to the East Coast or the West Coast, this is a problem in all of those localities, and it changes a neighborhood. The residents typically end up leaving, and it becomes a rental community. And that's an entirely different thing from an infrastructure requirement perspective, from a law enforcement perspective, from a drain on local infrastructure perspective. It's a whole different thing. So that is my perspective. Mr. Rhodes, did you have a comment?
Just Chairman and Commissioners, to add, and again, for the record, Mike Rhodes, Director of Development Services. We have had conversations with the County Manager's Office and the County Attorney's Office with regards to how we're managing vacation rentals. And we do expect, we hope to be able to bring some amendments to our current ordinance and processes to try to make that a little bit better and more effective than it has been. We hope to bring those back to you later on this year, so just stay tuned for that. But we've heard the concerns loud and clear, and we intend on trying to correct some of those.
And the chairman articulated it very well. And the more that we are becoming the place that people want to live, the more this is going to happen to us. And therefore, we've got to be proactive in this.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready for public comment, Board? Public comment, Ms. Drager.
There are two speakers, Jim Hadaway and Dave Axel.
Mr. Hadaway. I think there are three speakers now.
Somebody want
Madam
to be
Chair,
there?
members of the Commission, thank you for your time and good afternoon. I'm here before you in my capacity as Chair of the Seminole County Development Advisory Board. We are a private organization made up of professionals who live and work in Seminole County serving the real estate and development community. We are lawyers, we are brokers, we are planners, engineers, contractors. And as part of our work, we have worked with your staff who are truly the gold standard for this region. They have allowed us, as they've allowed other stakeholders, to participate in the creating and drafting and sculpting of this as it comes along. And the bottom line is, we love it. We very much like it. We think it serves our community well. We recommend that you approve it. We are especially fond of what you've just been discussing on the components that address affordable housing. We think this is truly innovative, something we've not seen before. It is market-driven. And this is something we've looked at proposals going back to the Kemp Commission that existed during the first Bush presidency, and this is something truly new. And I think Commissioner Delary, you raised interesting concerns. It certainly seems to address just new development, but it's better than what's out there now. And just thank you for your time, and we recommend your approval. And if you have questions, happy to answer them. But otherwise, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for being here and for your service. Next speaker.
Dave Axel.
Hello, my name is Dave Axel with Axel Real Estate, 1757 West Broadway Street in Oviedo. I stand in front of you today with, I think, a relatively modest request for a change in the alternative design standards section. I represent the owner of 66 gross acres at the northwest corner of Celery and Cameron that is right now proposed for development by Pulte Homes, who has it under contract. When we attended a pre-app in December of 2025, we were made aware that there were alternative design standards. The understanding we had at that time, and my understanding from looking at the record, is part of the reasoning for these standards, as you saw in the staff presentation, was under current lot criteria, it's not possible to achieve or get close to the allowable land use density. The pattern of development along this road has been gated subdivisions with typically 50-foot lots, and that's what we're proposing with a mix of 60s around the perimeter, which would achieve a density of roughly 3 units an acre. The property is bounded on the north by wetlands, on the south and east by roads that would be connected to, and on the west by a gated subdivision. There's also a gated subdivision across Celery. So I'm just requesting that in section 3573(1)(c)(1), which states under connectivity, projects using these standards shall not be gated, be stricken. In this section, there's still a requirement for connectivity. So if connectivity is possible, it'll still happen. In this particular case, it's not possible, and I don't want the client forced to go through, or the county forced to go through, a PUD process to achieve the same density than would otherwise be possible with this alternative standard. So that's my request, and I'm here for any questions if the board has any of me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last is Allison Yurko.
I have a map I'm going to be referring to. You can put that up. Got a couple of handouts for the clerk, if we could pass this on.
Please give your name and
Yes.
address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, Allison Yurko, P.O. Box 2286, Winter Park, Florida, 32790. You may recognize my name. My family owns an 8.5-acre parcel near the corner of Orange Boulevard and State Road 46. We're here today not to talk about the litigation that's been filed against us, but rather to thank the staff for working with us in connection with tweaking the ordinance to ensure that the vested rights determination that we had received in 2022 related to the baseline density of 13 density units per acre is recognized. And I did just want to point out for the record that we have property that is in a highly urban area. It's on a 4-lane, 6-lane arterial in the front. It's been assembled with the corner piece there for a total of 11.5 acres. There's a limited access highway in the back. Utilities are available there, and it has no ecological or hydrological connection to the Wekiva River. As you can see on here, it's over 3 miles from the Wekiva River, very close to I-4 and the 417. There's pictures in your packet, too, that outline that we're at a signalized intersection there with convenience stores at 2 corners. We are in the Wekiva River Protection Area at the outermost perimeter there and the Wekiva Study Area. That is legally significant. My dad got a comp plan amendment in 1995. We've been paying taxes on this property since 1995 as a commercial use. The statute does allow the highest density and intensity in the Wekiva River Protection Area to be furthest away from the river. And the project that we are looking at with the consolidation at the corner there is consistent with the recommendation that was made by your staff in 2022. They actually told us to consolidate with the corner, and they were supportive of a discretionary future land use amendment that would have allowed more than the 13 density units per acre. That's obviously not necessary now in light of Live Local, but I just point that out so you have a little bit of history and background. And I also just wanted to make it clear, this is a taxable parcel. If you look at the Viridian project about a mile away, that's returning $800,000 to $900,000 a year in tax revenue to the county. About $300,000 of that is to the general fund.
Ms. Yurko, you're running out of time.
Okay,
and
so
please get to the ordinance.
Yeah, we support the ordinance, and we thank the staff, and to the extent that in your packet, if you want to look at use of funds to clean up septic tanks near the river or provide revenue for Seminole Forever, that would, with all due respect, seem to be a potentially better use of revenue here. And we've, over the years, had people living in the woods on our property, and we're very committed to seeing an affordable housing project go there. Thank you very much, and we do support the ordinance. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it to Ms. Borkert now for the question with regard to connectivity and gated neighborhoods.
So currently, that section of the code, and this is in the additional use standards that Maya referenced earlier in her presentation, it requires that it prohibits gating of these projects that are using the alternative standards. I believe what Mr. Axel is requesting is that this be removed. He also, and I don't want to speak for him, but at one point he sent an email that said that maybe we prohibit gates, but we say unless you can establish connectivity per a further subsection down, which says, hey, if you can't connect because there's some type of obstacle, such as a wetland, such as a canal or something like that, you know, if you can't connect, then you're not required to connect to the neighborhood, but you are required to connect if you can. So it's up to the board as to what they want to do with this suggestion. Because this is has already, because the change that's being asked for, I guess, is not substantive. If you still required gates, and that's what was noticed in the ordinance, and it's proper, I don't think it would need to go back through, as with the other two amendments that staff is requesting. I don't think it needs to go back through to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the board has an option here is what they want to do. They can strike the prohibition and say, well, no, you're allowed to gate these communities, or you can say, no, you have to gate unless you can't connect, or you can leave it the same. It's up to the board. You may want to ask for staff's insight on this as to why they, put this together in these standards. I think that would provide much more insight than I can do.
Maya, would you mind giving us
Sure.
insight?
Yeah, so I know we've had some previous discussions on the gating requirements, and it seemed like at some of the work sessions, there was direction to decrease gated projects where it makes sense. So when we were drafting the language for these alternative design standards, which are voluntary, they're not a requirement for anybody to go through this process, we did draft it to prohibit gating. However, if the will of the board is to allow some leniency on that, there is already the clause that allows the Development Services Director to waive the connectivity. There could be a nice compromise in the middle of allowing the director to waive the gating requirement as well, if that was how you wanted to move forward.
So this one happens to be in my district. I think we're all going to learn things about our new code every time something comes into your district. And it doesn't make sense to force connectivity when connectivity can't happen. And from my perspective, gating is okay if you can't have connectivity. They were related in my mind. Obviously, you can't have connectivity through a gated neighborhood, but if the neighborhood can't be gated, create connectivity, and the surrounding areas are gated, neighborhoods are gated, it doesn't make sense to limit this property to a different restriction. So I actually would be in favor of giving staff the leeway at the point that the programs come through your review to make intelligent decisions around when it makes sense, you have to do it, and when it doesn't make sense, you don't have to do it. So I would love your input. Yes, Commissioner Lockhart.
The missing middle code allows, confirm or deny what I'm about to say.
Sure.
I'm telling you what I think I know, but I may be wrong. The missing middle code allows the Development Services Director to waive things such as the gating provision and the connectivity provision, correct?
That is correct. I do not believe that the missing middle prohibits the gating.
Okay.
I don't know that 100%, but it does have the same language as what's proposed here to allow waiving the connectivity portion, yes.
Okay, because I think this is where my consistency brain kicked in for a couple of items in this agenda, is that if we allow it for the missing middle, why would we not allow it in this instance as well? And just, again, have there be some consistency so that when a developer is coming in and they are looking at their Chinese menu of options available, they don't have to go, well, this one has this, and that one has that, and this one has the. Let's just provide some relief where we can so that there's consistency and flexibility is my thought process.
I would have no problem leaving the director have the option.
Commissioner Constantine.
Under the circumstances of, not being able to have connectivity, I think that's the case. But just walking in, I don't want to gate it, or I want to gate it, I don't think that that's, legitimate. But if there's circumstances that avoid the connectivity to allow gating, I wouldn't have a problem.
All right, have we given all of the input that we can possibly give, and we're ready to make a board action? So board, further discussion or a motion?
So the question that I have before we move on, Madam Chair, there's been a lot of comments up here about what we like, what we don't like. When will they be addressed?
Mr. Rhodes? I think that was a question to you.
To somebody.
Well,
Commissioner, I don't know that I heard clear direction on specifically what you wanted changed in the ordinance aside from the conversation you
We've
just
just been talking here
had.
about items, and we haven't made any decisions on any particular
Well,
changes.
staff's ready to take direction.
Okay.
So let me ask the question hypothetically. I think I'm reading the room probably inaccurately, but I'm doing the best I can. Reading the room, thinking that we are ready to pass this as it stands today, knowing that there was further input that was given from the dais today, one with regard to the gates and the connectivity, which we think we can already do. The other was with regard to managing accessory dwellings and rentals and all of the stuff that goes along with that. And there was one other that I don't think I recall, but at what point would those come back to us, and what's the form for that happening?
So right now, your second reading is scheduled for July the 14th. Assuming the changes as proposed are not too problematic with regards to our legal requirements for advertising and all that good stuff, then it's possible we could get those prepared and presented to you on the 14th. I'd defer to NASA and to Kate as far as the legal sufficiency goes, but it sounds like they're all within the framework of what we have going now, and we should be able to keep it on track. It's obviously of concern for us to try to get it back before you in a similar state, a largely similar state, for the July 14th hearing, so that we can get these things passed. There's been a lot of folks, as you all know, waiting for the changes, so.
I probably can, in my mind, here's how I see it. There were two amendments requested by staff, which I went through earlier. And then what I heard is consensus from the board as far as what Mr. Axel brought up, and not requiring gates, but having the Development Services Director be able to waive that requirement under certain circumstances. Those three changes we can make happen before July 1 and show you what they are specifically. July 14th, I'm sorry, the second reading. The other three things that I heard, and I think Commissioner Constantine's going to have to help me with one of them, but one of them was regarding the ownership requirement. It sounds to me like that requires a little more. What I heard from you is you want some more teeth in it, or maybe not, but maybe you just want to talk about it more and want some more input. So that will not be ready by July 14th, as you can imagine, but we can bring that back with more information. The other thing was from Commissioner Constantine, talked about the accessory dwelling units, but I think you're okay with the increase, but it's more the ownership that we just talked about. So you have to verify that with me.
It is the ownership, it is the residency.
Right.
So the real
Okay.
concern is, that was both given by the chairman and myself, about, what happens next,
Right.
basically.
Right, right.
What they do now, fine, but what happens
Right.
when, the owner is,
Right.
it's
An
gone.
enforcement
Yes,
standpoint,
enforcement.
right. Okay, so those two.
The 1,100 or less, I'm fine with.
Okay, so that's okay. And then the third one was Commissioner Delary, and his
Density
conversation.
Density bonuses in existing neighborhoods.
Right, he had a concern about density bonuses in existing neighborhoods. This density bonus program that's been proposed was initially provided by Kimley Horn, did a study, and said, hey, this is how you can get here to make it more of a viable density bonus program and allow for actual affordable housing units to the threshold set forth as proposed. This is how you do it, and then staff took that and put together the framework based on that study from Kimley Horn. Now, that's the only one I'm struggling with as far as if there are any changes to that section, depending on how I'm not sure, and maybe staff can help me, how we prevent that from impacting existing affordable housing units. I don't know how we do that other than to apply it now going forward so we can get more affordable housing units, which I thought was the goal. But if you could help me just kind of zero in on what more you need from us on that, that would be helpful, so we know what to bring back.
We've had some existing neighborhoods that had some small vacant pieces of property, 2-3 acres, and people want to do density bonuses to get above the LDR density, and that's caused some problems.
So you mean like as far as setbacks and having more dense pieces in a larger, in a neighborhood where the lot size is bigger?
Because we didn't, there's nothing in there that talks about value of the homes, and people are concerned that their value is going to be going down based on the affordable housing aspect of it.
And I think we're referencing the
Yes.
latest one that came through in Commissioner Constantine's
Sandy Lane.
district.
That's
Sandy
exactly
Lane.
what I'm talking about.
What Madam Chair, if I can, the concern is that all of us had, because it was a 5-0 vote, was that, the missing middle had more teeth into it that called directly for affordable housing and not for just increased density. And it was something that I think was very clear to the staff, and they said that they would bring that back. It's just not included in this amount of amendments. Is that not correct?
Yes, sir.
So what you're trying to, yeah,
So that's true, but they have not said that on the record here today.
yeah, and that's why
So I
I'm,
know we've had that conversation at that meeting.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to connect the dots, and if they can't do that this time, that's fine. But there has to be some expectations when that's coming.
and that was what I was getting to, Commissioner, that he would say that they're working on that.
So let me take the meeting back. I think NASA was answering the question and got to the last point, and that was the last point, so I'll give it back to you.
That's correct. That was the last point. And as far as the status of the missing middle, staff is looking into that. We are preparing some thresholds that are going to be put in the application so we can address that now and have the proper review for what's in the code. We are working on that now. And if we do find that any changes need to come back on the missing middle, we will bring them back. I just want everybody to make sure they understand, too, that we are still operating under Senate Bill 180. So all the changes that we have here today are more permissive, are not more restrictive or burdensome, and so we just need to be careful, with ultimate changes to missing middle, whatever they are, that we are not violating Senate Bill 180, but that expires in October of next year, so those are kind of the timeframes that we're working with.
Unless we have a hurricane.
All right, so
Unless there's a hurricane.
So I think we pray for good weather. I think we have answered all of the questions, so I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Motion to approve the Land Development Code amendments as presented by staff with the caveats of the 3 items that were just identified to be brought back with the modifications at our next meeting, July 14th. Is that an
meet your needs?
acceptable?
They're looking at each other.
Yeah, if you could just say the next meeting of the Board of County Commissioners at 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m. or soon thereafter.
July 14th at 1:30 p.m. or soon thereafter.
You've met the statutory requirement for the second
Fabulous.
meeting. Thank you.
I'd like a second to the statutorily required statement that, thank you, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Passes unanimously. Thank you for all of your hard work on this.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, and by the way, thank you for all your future hard work on this. All right. That takes us to the county attorney's report.
Thank you, Chairman. I have 3 items to discuss with you this afternoon. 2 are litigation items I need direction on, and the third is a follow-up item. I'm going to start with the county's litigation with Benchmark Construction Company and Liberty Mutual. This is related to the Country Club Heights Sewer and Water Main Replacement Project. We are in litigation with these parties for just about a year now. Recently, we received a proposal for settlement from Liberty. This is a statutory procedure by which they file, a motion in court or a notice in court that they're offering to settle with the county for X amount of dollars. Their offer was for $1.4 million. This starts the clock ticking. You have so many days to either approve or reject the offer. Because of the abbreviated time frame, it was my desire to have just a high-level discussion here at this meeting instead of trying to schedule a closed session. It's staff's opinion that this offer falls far short of the county's current damages, and also it only would resolve the litigation with Liberty as the surety, and so the litigation would remain with the other parties, including the construction company. So staff and the county attorney's office and our outside counsel are all recommending that the board reject this offer.
Madam
Thank you.
Move to accept the recommendation of staff and the county attorney.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously.
Thank you. My next item has to do with a request for reimbursement that the county submitted to FEMA for work that was performed on De Leon Street following Hurricane Ian in 2022. Basically, my non-engineer description is that the road completely washed out after the hurricane. Major repairs were required. Major expenses were incurred last week or the week before. FEMA denied in its totality the county's request for reimbursement. And so the Office of Management and Budget has indicated that they would recommend appealing this decision. It's a federal administrative appeal procedure. So because of the formality of the process, I just felt like I needed the board's consent before we filed this appeal. It's a two-tier appeal process, so this would be the first appeal.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Delory?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendation of the two-tier process and allow staff to appeal the decision of FEMA and move forward and keep us updated.
Second.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
If for whatever reason we needed to file the second appeal, can I get your consent here now?
I was trying to
Okay.
conclude both of them.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
I said
So
both
the
appeals.
motioner has included both,
I did.
seconder approves? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously.
Thank you. My final item is follow-up from a discussion after the last board meeting. We had a member of the public at the end of the meeting talk about data center moratoriums that were being implemented in neighboring jurisdictions. There was a brief discussion, and Commissioner Lockhart posed the question, could we in Seminole County even do a moratorium? And at the time, I expressed a little bit of reservation because of Senate Bill 180, because of just the restrictions it puts on the county on things like moratorium and other land use regulations. So the county attorney's office researched the issue, and just as an aside, there is legislation that was adopted this year. It goes into effect on July 1st, where the legislature said, hey, local governments, data centers, they're up your alley. And so under your land use regulation authority and your comprehensive planning authority, you get to deal with these large load customers like data centers. And you're a large load customer if you use a certain amount of electricity and utilities every month. So the definition expressly includes data centers. So you do generally have the ability to regulate data centers under your land development regulation authority and comp planning authority. But the short answer to the question that Commissioner Lockhart posed is that Senate Bill 180 does not prohibit you from implementing a moratorium. However, you don't just implement a moratorium. You have to build the groundwork to support the need for it. So if that was something the county wanted to pursue, I'd recommend that there be a significant amount of research put in by staff to see if there's even a need for this. Do we have these uses in our county? Do we have regulations on the book that need modifications or updating? To establish, do we need this? So if that's what the board wanted, I think that it would be appropriate to direct the county manager to have staff start this process to see if it's even warranted.
Commissioners, I would be more than happy to say, yes, we should direct the county manager to determine whether or not this is needed. We can't be the county that doesn't do this, and therefore the landing spot.
Madam Chair, is there an alternative to that? Because the only land that we have that would be large enough to do this would be in the rural boundary, from what I understand. Am I wrong about that?
I see it.
Well, so that's not how I see it either.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of land out at the airport. And I would also tell you that the land requirement for a data center today may not be the land requirement for a data center a year from now. This is moving very quickly.
Then I will accept that. I was just trying to think that, was there another way to do it? Like,
Yeah, I think that's fair.
not put it, like, say, you cannot, zone, put in zoning that you can't put one in.
Well, I think that would be
this
part
area.
of the analysis that
Okay.
needs to take place
That's
at
great.
this time, yeah.
That's great.
Research.
Then I support.
Commissioner Lockhart?
So years ago, before you were here, and I'm going to throw it back to solar panels on International Parkway. We had a lot of discussion about the fact that our code did not really help us to say no. We started talking about, this is just solar panels today. What could there possibly be tomorrow? And I believe the board at the time gave direction for staff to come back with some type of language or some discussion around what types of utilities do we want to manage, not manage, put guardrails around. How many solar panels are too many solar panels, right? And that never came back to us. I think we've had quite a bit of transition in staff, and of course, some other things have taken our attention. But this would be a great time to not only do the research on the data centers, but also look at the what's next. What is the utility? What is the solar power, whatever thing that might be coming our way that people might want to place in our county, that we could do something that's more comprehensive and covers a broader spectrum of items for us, so that we're not playing whack-a-mole, if possible.
Commissioner Dolari?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Instead of diving into the deep end of doing this big, massive study, because it's going to be a big effort, there may be ways of doing this in tiers, just as Commissioner Lockhart talked about. I think that's what you're talking about. And taking the first step to see, is there really a need to do this before we dive into it? And, where could they potentially go at this point?
I don't think that's what I heard you say, just maybe clarification.
Well, I think the study tells us if we need to do it.
Right.
That's right.
Right? And so I think that'll be part of your staff analysis, or whatever company, if we have to go out for RFP to hire someone to do the analysis for us. I think there's so much we don't know that we need to press pause while we're figuring out what's going on. What are the actual parameters, and what do we have? So yes, data centers should be the primary concern, but I think there are other layers that we might want to add on to that in addition. But I feel like if there is nothing other than a moratorium to allow us to press pause so that we can do that research, then that's what we need to do.
Well, and I think that would be part of the research.
Yeah, Chairman, I think there's like two levels of research. The first is, directing staff to take a look at our code and see what our regulations are. If one of these came in today, what they would be. And if, depending on what that answer is, that's going to give you the ability to say, okay, we need a moratorium because we don't have sufficient regulations, whatever the answer is there. But that's kind of the preliminary analysis to put the moratorium in place. We need to do that. It's, and then with the intent of having more study done, looking at our code, specific provisions, that aspect of it. And then coming back with some code changes, if necessary, when we're allowed to, again, and then you guys voting on that. So it's kind of a two-tiered process. The first is just identifying, do we need this? And that's, I think, what your direction to staff should be. Do we need this? What does our code say now? And then, if we come back and say, yeah, we have some stuff we need to work on. Here's language for a moratorium. Then you can move forward with it. And then the deeper analysis will occur after that, and any potential drafts of code changes.
Thank you for explaining it better than I did.
Commissioner Lockhart?
So I'm going to sound for a minute like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, and I assure you I am not. At least that is not my intention. I think we also have to be careful that we are not hindering business development and where there is an opportunity for economic development that does not negatively impact our citizens and our environment, we need to figure out how we can be a part of that. So far, we haven't heard that there are data centers that can be positive in a community. I would think we've only heard the negatives. But as the technology evolves and as, I don't want us to be, quote, closed for business, but we need to be open for business that does not negatively impact our community. So how, again, threading the needle, from my perspective, I don't
Well,
know how we do
moratoriums
that.
are required by their nature to be very specific in what you are doing. So they can't be broad swaths, and especially under Senate Bill 180, you're restricted from doing moratoriums if it's going to inhibit the ability for someone to rebuild or repair or, their building, upgrade their building, their existing building. So, it will be, if we do get to that point, we can specifically tailor it to address some of those concerns so that we're only really doing what's necessary to make sure that we're protecting the county of any potential impacts that may come through our land development code regulations.
So you have enough direction so I'll rephrase this to say we're going to do what NASA said.
Sounds good.
Fair? Sound good?
Patricia? Yes.
Yes,
And pray for no
We're still on the county attorney report,
and
by
pray
the
for
way.
no hurricanes.
Yes. All right.
And that concludes my report.
All right. County manager.
I have nothing, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Terrific. The next item on the agenda is a board appointment for the District 5 Parks and Preservation Committee. A gentleman by the name of Robert Young was recommended to me by Rick Durr and team. His term will be from 1/1 of '26 to 12/31 of '27.
So moved.
Second.
Have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. And that takes us to Commissioner Constantine for a district report.
Thank you very much. And before I start, I just wanted to say, if anybody has anything on theirs that needed a vote or discussion, let me know, because after this, I beg your indulgence, I'm going to have to leave to get to the executive committee for Florida Association of Counties. But a few things that I have. Number one, I think all of you have heard, but I just wanted to, on the record, Orange County voted not to do the McCullough Road project, which I think all of us are rather happy about. On the 18th, the Manufacturers Association Awards was done at the Florida Hotel. Commissioner Deloria and I attended along with our staff, and we, Seminole County, won numerous awards in that event. Also, the Value Adjustment Board will be meeting on the 30th of June, and I don't have to tell you that Red Hot and Boom and our 250th anniversary is coming up. I do want to tell you, though, that we received new cougar cubs at the zoo.
Cougar
That's fantastic.
Cubs.
That is fantastic.
That is pretty cool.
And that's it. Thank you very much.
I thought he said cups.
I thought he said cups too, and I did not know what that meant, so
Well, I
I was
assumed
really at a loss.
we were doing brews around the zoo with cups
Oh,
with cougar
I'm sorry.
pattern.
Cougar cubs are coming
Babies.
from the north, and they're coming to, we've received them, and they are in quarantine, like they do with everything else, but they will be a great addition to the zoo.
Even better than cups.
Yeah, it's better than cups.
And that concludes your report?
That includes.
So I'm going to take an indulgence right now before Commissioner Constantine leaves and say that the airport has announced that Bermuda Air Service is moving from MCO to the Sanford Airport on Halloween, so you can now go to Bermuda directly, and they will eventually be opening up flights to Belize.
Great.
Needed him to know that before he left.
Great news.
Yeah, it is great news. All right, that takes us to you, Commissioner Lockhart.
I I don't remember, there's a lot on this report, and so I'm not sure if it's because we haven't met in a while or I've just been super busy. So I'm going to skip over quite a few of these things in the interest of time. I did want to point out that on June 3rd, the Florida Division of Emergency Management, Florida Disaster Foundation, hosted an event as a part of their conference, bringing local elected officials together to meet with FEMA agency and state elected officials and members of that division to better collaborate and build relationships before the storm, whatever that storm may be. And it's a brand-new initiative. They've not done this in the past. I think it was very well received, and so I want to give a special shout-out to Kevin Guthrie, who is the Secretary of Emergency Management for the state of Florida. He's done an exceptional job, and I know Alan Harris they work seamlessly together, and I did probably overstep my bounds and came close to threatening the secretary that he was not allowed to poach Alan Harris. So I just wanted to get that on the record. It was a great event. Thank them very much for hosting that. Participated in the Legacy Square wall raising that Habitat for Humanity put on, their newest project in Commissioner Herr's district. Unfortunately, I know you were out of town. You couldn't be there. I was honored to fill in your shoes. Very well attended. Great to see our community services staff, the private sector, nonprofits, just everyone coming together. Fantastic use of those $1.4 million of ARPA funds that we designated to continue to be reinvested into affordable housing opportunities. Some of the families who will be receiving houses, who will be working their tails off to receive houses, by the way, they are not given to them. They work very hard to earn these houses. Were there, and it was wonderful to see that happen. Commissioner Delary and I attended, along with members of our staff, Ms. Alori and others, the FDOT groundbreaking for the I-4 truck stop project. That's something, of course, our board has been talking about for years, and it was fantastic to have members of the current administration from DC here as a part of that project, for the hundreds of millions of dollars of infra grant funds that are being dedicated to the Central Florida corridor, the I-4 corridor, for truck stop, additional parking spots. One of the comments that was made to me by a community member recently, though, they are concerned that it is going to bring more traffic to the surface roads, although they don't live in the immediate area. And so any type of communication, community focus that we can do to help talk about where the ons and offs of these trucks will be and what that traffic impact may or may not be would be really helpful. I know it mostly impacts Commissioner Herr's district, but it will definitely be a much safer environment for everyone on I-4 when these truck stops are completed. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say for today. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Delary?
Oh, no, I lied.
Well,
I
take
wrote it on the
back.
back, and so I didn't see it. Okay, you have popcorn in front of you. And they're all cute, little themed popcorn. This one is a white cheddar go-getter. This popcorn is a result of a fundraiser for the Bronner House Museum. For those of you who don't know, the Bronner House is a piece of, it's a home that is attached to the Evergreen Cemetery in Castleberry. The Bronner family donated acres of land back in 1890 to allow for a black cemetery. So there are, but that was back, of course, when blacks and whites could not be buried in the same cemeteries. And so they dedicated, I believe it was 16 acres specifically for black slaves in the community to be buried. And so this is a grassroots community effort to help raise money to preserve the cemetery, to improve the museum, and combine American history and local history so that the community is aware of how far back our roots grow and how far we've come. So if you all ever are interested in supporting the Bronner House Museum, I encourage you to do so.
Terrific.
Thank you. We did go to the truck stop ribbon cutting. There was an individual that actually started that movement about the truck stops, and I know that Commissioner Constantine knew him very well. Dominic Selfie. judge, Selfie, that's what it was? He was a judge, I don't remember what years he was a judge, but I think it was in the 90s. And he's been working on that for many, many years.
In the 80s. I
Was
can
it
tell you
80s?
that because Mrs. Herr, the first Mrs. Herr,
Okay.
my mother-in-law, was his clerk.
Okay, didn't know that either. But, okay, since he's been working on this for 30-plus years, and he's no longer with us, and I wanted to thank his legacy, that his dream of actually moving those truck stops out of the Longwood area is finally coming to fruition. So I want to thank Dominic for all his hard work, even though he's no longer with us. Commissioner Constantine and I did go to the manufacturers' President's Dinner, and we do have 3 companies here in Seminole County that did get awards. There's only 3 awards, and it was Osceola, Seminole, and Orange County. And out of the 3 awards that are available for Central Florida, Seminole County and the manufacturers won all 3. The small business was Herndon Manufacturing, middle business was JST Power, and the large manufacturer was Lumen. And so it's pretty special to have 3 manufacturers to sweep all 3 awards for the Seminole County area in such a large area. The one thing I did want to bring to our attention is Loomis is trying to get a permit through the city of Altamont, the city of Sanford, city of Sanford, and they've been trying for quite some time. I'm hoping that their permit will come through, because if it doesn't come through soon, they're going to lose several contracts and several millions of dollars worth of revenue. Staff has contacted Sanford quite a few times. I've actually contacted Sanford once, and I'm hoping, and I actually texted them this morning, the status on their permit. They do not, or I did not get a response yet, so I'm assuming that the permit has not come in yet. But I'd like to ask staff, when they do talk about the JPA, to talk about wait time and responses to permits, because it is becoming a problem in and around Seminole County with those businesses in Sanford.
Commissioner, if I may,
Yes.
County Manager Darren Gray has a meeting with the City Manager Norton Bonaparte in about a week, so I will share that for part of their discussion.
Because I did talk to the president of Lumens at the manufacturers' dinner that night, and the business, if he doesn't produce it by a certain date, will be going to California. Just FYI, and it's in the millions of dollars. I did go to the Sanford Airport work session and the tour. That was last week. And I also went to the Summit for Florida for Better Transportation. Secretary Perdue was there. He gave a wonderful presentation about working with local government and in the environment today. And it was very uplifting to see Secretary Perdue, and quite a phenomenal speaker, and he is all excited about Scout. And I know July 4th is right around the corner. Wish everyone a happy, safe July 4th, and we'll see each other back in second meeting in July. End of my report.
All right, I will be extremely brief. I don't know that we've ever said this out loud, but congratulations to our own fire department. Out of 80 submissions nationwide, the Community Paramedicine Program has been named the Program of the Year at the Atrium Health Mobile Integrated Health and Community Paramedicine Conference in Chicago.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And I won't go into all the details about the program, but we have 250 people enrolled in it, and that is 250 people that are a lot less likely to have to don the doors of an emergency room because of the services are brought right to their home. I appreciate you going and covering for me at the Habitat wall raising. I would have been there. I was out of town visiting Lake Butler, Florida, which is an amazing place that I have never been to before for business. And yesterday, Commissioner Lockhart and I did attend the Celery Avenue Trail ribbon cutting ceremony right out front of our building. And this is the next portion of the trail to create connectivity that eventually will all connect to Volusia County. You'll be able to walk from Sanford to Volusia County should you ever have the desire to do so, which, Bob, that may be you, because I don't see the rest of us doing that.
No, ma'am.
tapping out on that. And that does conclude my report. It is time for public comment. So I just want to tell you, you guys didn't get to see it, but I said it's time for public comment, and they went, yes, it is. Come on up, gentlemen.
The speaker is Mr. John Murphy.
Who's after Mr. John Murphy?
No more speakers after that.
Oh, I think we do have two coming up, so.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is John Murphy. I live at 2060 Hunterfield Road in English Estates. And I'm here today to express my concerns as a professional and the concerns of the HOA, but I'm not speaking for the president who's sitting back there. On the Oxford Road sidewalk stormwater improvement project, which has fallen way behind schedule. As of today, we have 120 some days left on a 500-day project. To date, nothing has been completed on this project. The contractor has not completed one item of work, and it's very disturbing. The other disturbing thing is that the representative from Seminole County, it's your project and it's your money, has been negligent in attending the project meetings. Today was number 52, and I believe he was on the phone, but I'm not sure. And so it appears to the residents, to myself, and to others that you kind of let go of this project. It's an old neighborhood that needs developed. It was developed starting in 1959, and the infrastructure is shot. And so it's being restored, but it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of backing from the commission. One thing I observed today was the contractor is to provide a safe walking zone from South Boulevard, which is at the English Estates Elementary School, to Domrick Road. No such thing exists. He parks his equipment, he dumps dirt on the lawns. The place is a disaster area. But today, this morning, 9:30, there was a gentleman walking his dog on Oxford Road because the sidewalk or any area to protect him was not available. I have a whole list of items that I'll send to Commissioner Lockhart that it's just general concerns, but I think some of you are up for re-election, and this may go against you, that this project has gone to heck in a handbasket. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, did you turn in a form?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we do need you to fill out a form. You're there and you're standing there, so we want to hear from you, but we need you to turn in a form.
Okay.
Name and address for the record.
My name is Mark Harden. My address is 2460 Markingham Road. I'm in Commissioner Lockhart's district, as this HOA is. And my concern is the same that Mr. Murphy was speaking of. He is advisor to the HOA on this project, and it is the Oxford Road Sidewalk and Drainage Improvement Project, SIP number 021-07094. So there's 557 properties in our corporate boundary where this project's located in the southwest unincorporated Seminole County. And the purpose of my appearance here, along with my other two gentlemen, is to urgently request that the county exercise more control over the contractor, Mercon Construction Company, who is responsible for this project in our community, to resolve several ongoing problems. I'm going to state these in summary, and I'll give a copy of this to you, Commissioner Lockhart. First of all, there's no production schedule. There's no milestones. Not one has been met. There's insufficient manpower to finish on a timely basis. There's use and destruction of private property for construction equipment and material storage. There's incorrectly installed slot drains. They're too high to drain, so they got to be taken out again and redone. There's storm drains that are closed for months awaiting completion, causing local flooding, making passage difficult after rainfall in our streets. I just went through this 2 Saturdays ago at night in the middle of a torrential downpour. I thought I was going to get flooded out myself. There's garbage consisting of chicken bones, toilet paper, wrappers, etc., and destruction debris of various kinds in the right-of-way throughout this project. There's poor maintenance of traffic when we do have that. And even so, still people will come in opposite directions on a one-way road. There's a lack of knowledge of buried gas lines in this neighborhood that needed relocation, identified early in the year. And nothing has happened on that. There's a lack of access for school children to get to and from school during the school year. So our once beautiful community looks like a war zone that Mr. Delary has been in a few years ago. And he's seen that
Years ago.
it was a very nice community. And
I've been there a time or two myself.
I know you have.
yeah, as you
Yeah.
have too, Commissioner Lockhart. So I'm here again to urge urgently for the county to look into this and provide some oversight. Thank you for your time.
We appreciate you coming in. Are you about to raise your hand? Oh. Yes, Commissioner Lockhart's going to make a comment, but I also see our Director of Public Works is walking up, Ms. Tawny Allure, and she is going to more than likely, are you wanting to take the microphone, or are you wanting to speak to the individuals?
Oh, I can do both,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
We would appreciate you doing
Yes.
that.
Yes, Tony O'Lory, Public Works Director. I will have to rebut some of the things that we've heard today. Our contractor, well, yes, we do have a gas line, TECO, that has delayed in the removal. That hasn't stopped the work. Today, we've got 3 crews out there. We have somewhere between 3 or 4 crews out there. So saying nothing has been done is not a correct statement. I have personally talked to TECO about getting that gas line removed. And sometimes during design, we do miss utilities. There's a lot of utilities out there, and we try to get every one of them, but with construction projects, there are some utilities that are missed. I did speak to TECO. They are working with their contractor to move that up quicker. The other thing that we have done prior to school letting out, we had to limit the amount of time that our construction crews be on there to make sure that the kids can get to school, that we were not hampering that to school and home from school. We have just given, since school has ended for the summer, given our contractors additional time of about 4.5 hours to work on the job. I did check with our construction manager. Our contractor schedule is to provide these services by the end of the year. We are still, as of right now, on track to do that. We cannot provide means and methods, as you know, to our contractor. If they want to put more crews out there, if they fall behind, that's their prerogative to do so. As of right now, our construction folks are saying we are on time. Now, I would love to get the itemized list, and we can address those points, bullet points. I know Mr. Murphy goes to every one of the progress reports. To say we don't have a representative on that is inaccurate as well. I take exception to that. But I would be more than happy to work with Mr. Murphy and the HOA to address their other concerns.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lockhart.
Yeah. As soon as our office was notified of these concerns and we were provided pictures, I actually took a tour. I didn't necessarily let anybody know that I was going. Sometimes that's not the most productive thing to do. But I saw what you're referencing, and it was completely unacceptable. Our office immediately reached out to staff. Of course, no one reports to us but the county manager and the county attorney. So my staff at my office was kind enough to reach out to Public Works and make sure that all of the coordination that was necessary was occurring. I have seen firsthand how horrible the conditions are, and anything that we need to do as a county to make sure that our contractor is in compliance is what we will do.
And I'll round out the conversation by just speaking on behalf of all of us. This project, I came onto this board in 2020, and this project has been talked about as a priority from that time on, and I know it was talked about for years beforehand, and the amount of work that led up to the mess that you're living in now has been significant. And I realize that what you're living through is not optimal, but there has been a significant amount of work and a significant amount of investment to get us to this day. It is unfortunate that the construction project is leaving the taste in the mouth of the residents that it is, but to think that we don't care about this project is the furthest thing from reality. We do. We don't live in it every day. We will admit that. But we appreciate you bringing it to our attention. I think our staff has heard loud and clear. And I will tell you that Ms. Laurie is one of the best in the industry, and I would suspect that the contractors will work very nicely with her to accommodate the needs of our citizens. So we appreciate you being here.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, guys.
Any other comments?
No, ma'am.
That concludes public comment. Anything for the good of the order? Commissioner Constantine's about ready to leap out of his chair. All right. Meeting adjourned.